Cowboys vs. Everything. Written by Ethan Clark. Audio recorded by Marissa Mondito. A cowboy is alone on a spaceship, looking below at a destroyed Earth. The cowboy's name is Claud. I saw the world end once me and my friends fought those Indians we didn't know our battle would eventually destroy the planet. Time travel, evil clones, a world killer, a mad scientist, mer people, and aliens. Once we fought those Indians, we started a war that destroyed everything. Act 1. Cowboys and Indians. Me and the boys were at the saloon playing darts and drinking beer. Around this time, we hear that there has been another land dispute with the Indians, who are our next-door neighbors. Me and my buddies laugh about these dispute things because we always won these disputes. The Indians were no threat. They are trash compared to us cowboys, and they knew that. If the Indians didn't listen to us, we would just burn down half of their village again. After a long day of partying, me and my buds go outside and we're preparing to leave the saloon. And out of nowhere, a 2-year-old appears next to a lamppost. We ask him where his parents are, and then we realize that 2-year-old was no 2-year-old. It was the strongest Indian alive. He pushed over the lamppost and it landed on the saloon. Sparks went flying, and out of nowhere, the saloon was on fire. Everyone was distracted by the saloon being on fire. Then out of nowhere, we're surrounded by the Indians. A spear hits the leader of the Cowboys. The leader of the Cowboys dies. The fire is swarming around us all. I knew we needed a diversion to escape from the pathetic Indians' grasp. Out of nowhere, I see a butterfly. I grab hold of it and say, "Get the eagles." We need the eagles to save us. 5 seconds later, the eagles are there. 5 eagles to be exact. 100 cowboys on each eagle, and we escape. The cowboys regroup on the mountain above. We need a new leader, and a new plan. The 500 cowboys look at me. They knew I could summon the eagles. I basically saved them. I was the best option. And they said together, "So Claude, what is the plan?" And I told my comrades we were going to need a horse. Act 2. The Battle of the Lamppost. The Indians took control of the cowboy village. No one could return home, so the cowboys stayed on the mountain and built a weapon to destroy the Indians. The cowboys built a lamppost and a giant horse. After the construction was complete, the plan was set in motion. All 500 of the cowboys but me went inside the giant horse, and I pushed them towards the Indian village. I then climbed to the top of the 50-foot-tall lamppost, pulled out a remote controller, and it turned the lamppost into a giant robot. I flew the robot and landed on top of the Indian leader's hut, killing their pathetic leader. I then turned the robot back into a lamppost. I looked at the ground, and I saw the Indians in shock as they were surrounding the lamppost and mourning their pathetic leader. I was sad that they looked up to him. After a few minutes, they noticed that I was at the top of the lamppost, and they started to climb. I pulled out my gun, and I started to shoot. Bam, bam, pow, and the Indians started to drop like flies. After 50 dropped dead, I realized I only have 1 bullet left. The Indians are climbing closer to me. This is when I panic. How could I be surrounded? I'm a cowboy. I'm in one of the greatest groups of humans on the planet. Thankfully, out of nowhere, the giant horse appears and it crashes into the giant lamppost, knocking it down. The lamppost crushes 15 homes and kills more Indians. I land safely on the ground. After my fellow cowboys exit the giant horse, I tell them to initiate phase 2. And that's when we lit our giant wooden horse on fire. The Indians took over our town and burned our saloon. We were going to destroy everything they ever owned with this fire and leave them nothing. It was genius. The Indians are in shock, of course. They soon realized there was no chance of saving their village, but there is a chance that they could kill us. So they grab their spears and we pull out our guns and the real fun begins. After an hour of spears being thrown and guns being shot, we surrounded the Indians. That 1 bullet that I had left on the top of the lamppost, I didn't even have to fire it. The Indians were now weaponless, and they ultimately surrendered. I didn't want them around anymore, so I ordered my cowboys to kill the rest of them. Everyone was about to follow my orders, but then one cowboy named Dan refused. All the cowboys stopped what they were doing, and they looked at me. I told the cowboys to follow my order, and then Dan spoke up. He told everyone that we got revenge. We burned their village, slaughtered half of them, and killed their leader. Dan put down his foot and said we achieved our goal. We didn't need to kill them all. I then pulled out my gun and I fired my last shot, hitting Dan's heart. He dropped to the ground dead. I told the Cowboys to free the remaining Indians, and I told them to head to the top of our mountain. Act 3. The Arrival of the Martians. Claude waits on top of the Cowboys' mountain. He regrets his decision he made earlier. He regretted not killing the remaining Indians. As all the Cowboys arrive, Claude addresses them. I am your leader. This means you must follow my orders and my plans. We defeated the Indians easily. Just imagine what we could do with our power against the world. We can maybe even conquer the world. Are you guys ready to become all-powerful rulers of the world? Are you all ready to stand and fight with me? Nobody stands or shouts. Everybody stares at Claude in horror. A minute later, one man stands and shouts. Dan was right. We got revenge. We thought the Indians were the monsters, but look at this now. Look at our crooked leader. We just want to live in peace with no threats against us. And we went too far. Our leader went too far. He doesn't represent us. Claude represents hatred and greed. All he wants is power, and I believe he should no longer be our leader. The rest of the Cowboys murmur in agreement. And then Claude was banished from the Cowboys' land. Spaceships hover over the Earth. The aliens located on the ships are observers. They have watched the planet since the beginning of time. They saw the Turtle War, the Elemental War, the Great Plague of 2,007,803. They have seen everything. Emma Martian is sick of seeing the cruel world. She wants all the hatred to end. One day she sees a battle so easily won by a group of fighters. She realizes if she can take control of these fighters, she could use them to fight their way to ruling the world, stopping all wars and hatred. The leader of the aliens, Emma Martian, commands her fleet of spaceships to go to the Earth below and capture the Cowboys. And her plan succeeds. The Cowboys are captured, all except one. Act 4. Hillbilly Huck. Was I wrong, Claude wonders. Why would the Cowboys kick me out? Claude ponders his view on the world. He then wanders into forest. Claude lays down on a log surrounded by bushes and he falls asleep. There's rustles in the bushes. Claude wakes up and he sees a raggedy old man standing over him. Get away from me, hippie, Claude yells. I'm no hippie, the old man explains. I'm on my way to stop a war from starting. Claude asks what war. The Merle people versus the Fire Tribe. Claude asks the hippie what his name was. I'm Hillbilly Huck. Huck then asks Claude will he join him to stop the war from happening. Claude realizes he has nothing better to do, so he replies, yes. Act 5. The Ocean of Olaval. Hello, I'm Hillbilly Huck, and I'm currently on a mission to stop more destruction in this already ruined world. I have a cowboy joining me on my quest. So in general, we're gonna go stop a war. Me and Claude traveled the continents and ocean in the span of 2 days. I tell him about my parents who were murdered by a man named Peyton. He created genetically modified giant turtles who ate them. Resulting in the Great Turtle War, I tell him about New York being destroyed in the Turtle War. I tell him about Peyton killing my girlfriend. I then tell Claude that the reason I'm on my way with him to stop the Merle people and the Fire Tribe from fighting is because I want to see all this hatred in the world end. I tell Claude about me swearing revenge on Peyton for what he did to my family. Countless families. Claude tells me about Indians attacking and burning down his homeland. He tells me how he volunteered to go on a mission to find the Cowboys a new home. It's obvious, though, that he's lying. But I go along with the story, hoping that he'll eventually tell me the truth. It's nighttime. I look at the map, and I notice that we are close to where the Merle people and Fire Tribe live. I wake up Claude, and I tell him we just need to cross the Dead Sea to get to the Ocean of Olaval, the home of the Merle people. Emma Martian watches the Cowboys that she captured are being loaded up into the brainwashing pods by her fellow aliens. They would soon be under her control. Claude and Huck traveled the Dead Sea on Huck's boat, finally reaching the Ocean of Olaval. It takes them another day, but they eventually reach an island with an active volcano, surrounded by a coral reef. At the front of the coral reef is a gateway. Huck tells Claude to wait inside a boat while he talks to the Queen of the Merle people, Catherine Trexon. Before Claude could argue, they both hear a voice booming from the top of the volcano. They see a man in goggles. The man tells them that they have fallen right into his trap. This man was the mad scientist. Suddenly, there's a rumble in the water, and the mer people arise. Except they aren't people. They're mer zombies. The volcano then erupts, and an army of dazed fire people appear. They are under Peyton's control. Act 6. The Alien Takeover. The brainwashing was complete, and now Emma Martian had control of a hopefully unstoppable army. She orders her fleet of aliens to lower down and unleash the Cowboys upon the capital of the United Kingdoms. The leaders of the biggest country in the world were killed. A new leader was appointed. Emma Martian had control of an army of cowboys and the biggest military in the world. She uses her power to declare that if an act of violence or hatred is committed, the offender is killed. She wants to end all crime, so she started a worldwide regime. Of course, there are rebellions, but the advanced surveillance cameras created by the aliens find these groups and then bomb them into oblivion. Drug users, alcoholics, criminals, ex-criminals are also killed. In the span of 5 days, 1 billion people are dead. You think the citizens of this peaceful world would be happy about the end of violence, but they're scared. Scared to move, scared to do anything, because if they do one wrong thing, it's game over. They need someone. They need a hero or two. Meanwhile, Act 7, The Battle of Alavel. Claude grabbed his pistol, Huck grabbed his shotgun, and the two of them jumped off of Huck's boat onto the volcanic island. Claude starts shooting his pistol at the fire people, trying to kill them to get them out of his way. Huck immediately yells at him to stop, and only injure them so they can't hurt us. At this moment, Claude understands why his fellow cowboys kicked him out. He realized how badly he treated the Indians during his time as leader. Claude realizes everyone on this planet isn't equal, and every life matters, besides their trolls. These creatures were people too, just controlled by the mad scientist. Claude yells at Huck to go face the mad scientist and to find a way to end whatever control he had over the fire tribe and the mer people. Huck starts climbing to the top of the volcano. He can see the mad scientist's laboratory. This was Huck's moment to stop this madman from harming anyone else. But more importantly, Huck would get his revenge. Claude, with his new outlook on these creatures, does everything possible to hold them back, to disarm them, to weaken them, but not kill. In no time, Claude is out of ammo in his pistol. He's surrounded by water and fire. Claude sees a satellite dish at the top of the volcano. He realizes that the satellite dish must be the thing that is controlling the mer people and the fire tribe. Claude does a triple backflip and escapes from the enemy's grasp, and he also starts climbing the volcano. Huck finally reaches the lab and he enters. He sees Peyton standing next to the satellite dish. In exactly 1 minute, I will have full permanent control of the fire tribe and the mer people, yells Peyton. I killed your parents, your girlfriend, and with them under my control, I will have ultimate power. I could literally kill anyone. Huck looks at him and says you won't succeed. Out of nowhere, the satellite dish catches fire and crashes onto the floor. The mer people and the fire tribe were freed, but the mad scientist escaped. He jumped into the volcano and was launched 5,000 miles away. Huck exits the laboratory and sees Claude. Huck asks him, how did you take down the satellite? Claude replies, I climbed the volcano, stood in front of the satellite, and then the fire tribe shot a fireball at me and I dodged it. Claude and Huck meet with the queen of the mer people. She thanks them for saving her and she informs them that if they ever need help, the mer people will be there. Claude and Huck wish her the best and then they hop into the volcano and they launch themselves to the United Kingdoms. Act 8, The Hawk on the Rainbow. As they're flying through the sky, Huck asks Claude what is he going to do now that their mission is over. Claude responds, I'm going to make up for my past sins and I'm going to help those Indians rebuild their village. Huck tells Claude it was an honor to be able to fight with him, and Claude says the same thing back. They both prepare to land on the ground in the middle of the United Kingdoms, but they land on top of something invisible instead. Claude grabs his gun and shoots the invisible thing thereon, and a window breaks. Inside was a green, almost human-like figure with 3 eyes. The creature was scrawny. Huck jumps inside the vehicle, grabs the creature, and interrogates him. After about an hour of interrogation, they find out about the Martians, the deaths of over 1 billion people now, and the evil cowboys. Huck and Claude use a UFO to send false information about a massive rebellion to the Queen of Aliens, Emma Martian herself. Where is this rebellion located at? A giant rainbow. Emma Martian sends her army of cowboys to the rainbow. Huck and Claude see that the cowboys are climbing the rainbow. The cowboys finally reach the top of the rainbow. They confront Claude and Huck. So this is the massive rebellion our master was talking about. Pathetic. A cowboy named Jerome yells. Another cowboy yells and asks why a giant wooden horse is in the background. And then it clicks. The cowboys recognize Claud. One cowboy shouts, "There's that pathetic murderer, our old terrible leader." Claud looks at them and says, "I know what I did was wrong, but what you're all doing is massive genocide to the world's population, and it needs to stop." Claud pulls out his gun. Huck pulls out his shotgun. The opposing cowboys laugh and ask, How are you two of you gonna beat us?" Huck replies, "We can't beat you, but she can." Out of nowhere, a shadow covers the rainbow. Catherine Trexon was the one creating the shadow. Creating the tidal wave that would knock out the cowboys. Claud and Huck hopped inside the giant horse, and the tidal wave swiftly took out the cowboys. Claud and Huck thank Catherine for dealing with their cowboy problem. They inform her that she needs to lock the cowboys in the dungeon of the Fire Tribe's volcano. She says it's no problem, and she watches as Claud and Huck turn away to leave. She shouts at them and asks, "How are y'all gonna stop the regime?" We're gonna improv. "We're gonna improv it," replies Claud. Act 9. The End of the Regime. Emma Martian watches as her army of cowboys lose to a water princess, a cowboy, and a hillbilly. She is furious. She knew that the cowboy and hillbilly were on their way to stop her regime, so she ordered her army of Martians to stop them from reaching her giant UFO. Claud and Huck said goodbye to Catherine, and then they did a triple backflip off of the rainbow, landing on the ground. As they were walking up the giant UFO the size of the White House, Claud finally tells Huck about his past sins, genocide, and being a terrible leader. Huck tells him that everything will be okay. He tells Claud that he will be redeemed, and then they finally arrive at the door of the UFO. Out of nowhere, an invisible flying object hits Huck and knocks him out. Claud does a triple backflip and dodges the object flying at him. Claud realizes that the Queen of the Martians sent her alien army and invisible UFOs to defeat them, and Claud knows that he can't fight an army he can't see. Claud sees a butterfly. He reaches out to it and whispers something into its antenna. The butterfly flies away. Claud is defenseless. He's doing random flips and shooting his gun randomly, trying to hit the invisible UFOs flying at him. Then Claud is hit, knocked down to the ground, gun out of his hand. In a few seconds, he's tied up and a green Martian is carrying him. He sees Huck tied up and knocked out. Claud failed once again. Then the Eagles arrive. Claud is freed instantly. He does a triple backflip. He grabs his gun and he shoots the Martians. Explosions are everywhere in the sky. The Eagles have taken down the alien army's UFOs. Emma Martian yells in agony as she sees the last of her troops being taken down. The Eagles had finished their task, and so they flew away gracefully, leaving Claud to take down the last Martian. Emma Martian watches as Claud approaches her. She was angry. She sets up all the hatred in the world, ending all acts of violence, crimes, and hatred. And this was how she was treated. She was furious. How could she lose? She fell down to the ground and started crying, realizing she had failed. Claud approached Emma and reached out his hand. Claud tells her about his past sins and how he felt like he was doing the right thing even though he wasn't. He told her that if he had a chance of redemption, so did she. Emma grabbed his hand and said, "I guess you're right." Claud replies with a grin, "I'm always right." And Emma responded, "Thank you for the speech about how I can be redeemed. But do you honestly think I care about redemption? You just took everything away from me," she yells. She grabs Claud's gun and shoots him right through the skull. Act 10. The Funeral. Huck opens his eyes. He sees multiple things happening at once. He sees explosions in the sky. He sees eagles flying around. Huck's vision begins to focus, and he sees a man reach out to a Martian. The man then laughs. Huck sees his friend Claud laughing with the enemy. Then boom, a gunshot goes off and Claud hits the ground. Huck runs over and sees his only alive friend with a hole in his head. Claud is dead. Huck tackles the Martian that killed his best friend. He wanted to kill the creature. The Martian took one of the few people he had left. He punches and punches the Martian. Even once he's tired, he doesn't stop. It takes 5 random civilians to pull him away. Huck had lost so much. He curls up in a ball and cries. The Cowboys wake up inside a volcano. They don't remember anything from the past few days. As they leave the volcano, they see a beaten Martian in a cage with a sickening grin on his face. Catherine is the one to inform the Cowboys' new leader Jerome about the Martians, the mind control, the billions of people dead, and Claude trying to save everyone. She informs them that Claude's funeral will take place in 3 days at the new Cowboy Saloon built by Claude's friend Huck. 3 days later at the saloon, everyone shows up to Claude's funeral. The Cowboys, the Hillbillies, the Indians, the Fire Tribe, the Mer people, and the normal citizens of the world. After about an hour of stories from the Cowboys, Huck is asked to speak. Huck stands up, ready to give a speech to memorialize his friend. He sees the crowd and his mind goes blank. How could he express a friendship? A dark figure emerges from the crowd. He hops on top of Claude's casket with a loud laugh. Sorry that I'm interrupting the ceremony, but I have unfinished business. The crowd was shocked and stared at the mad scientist. Huck yells, "You shouldn't be here." Peyton shocked and said, "I don't care." Peyton pulls out what seems to be a gun and a bright beam comes out of it and shoots at Huck. A second one fires and hits the Cowboys, Indians, Mer people, the Fire Tribe, and they all disappear. Act 11, The Vanishing Point, written by Angela Gaeta. Claude wakes up on a misty floor. Everything is a daze. Claude stands up and he looks around the area he's enclosed in. He sees a man and he asks the man where he is. The man replies, "You are in your own purgatory. This is a place known as the Vanishing Point. This place is on an axis outside of reality. This place haunts you for your past sins until you have truly moved on." Claude laughs off what the man says. "I've moved on from my past sins," Claude proudly says. The man looks at him and asks him, "Really?" Claude views changes and he sees the Battle of the Lamppost. He sees every Indian killed. He watches their death, the pain and loss in the Indians' eyes. He watches his families. Brothers, sisters, moms, and dads are separated, and Claude breaks. He cries because he was the villain. He was the bad guy. He did the opposite of saving the world. He was destroying it. Claude looks up a few minutes later. He sees the man that he was talking to earlier. He asks the man, "Can I make things right?" The man replies, "All you have to do is find the Indians and ask." Claude begins to prepare himself to go ask for forgiveness for his actions. He begins to search for them Indians. Claude wonders, will they forgive him? After a while, Claude sees human figures in the distance. He feels anxiety rush through him because he knows it's the Indians. He walks up to them and gets down on his knees and apologizes for the acts of crime he committed against them. Claude addresses them and says, "I know I caused you and your families huge amounts of pain, but I have come here not as an enemy. I am here to ask for your forgiveness." They just stand there in shock, because they didn't expect this. The leader of the group steps out and says, "I thank you for apologizing, but in order for us to forgive you, we need you to do something." "Of course, I will do anything to make things right," Claude replies. "My people are suffering. There is a plague going around them here in the Vanishing Point. There is a place called M&M, where you will find a flower that is native to that area. We need the flower because it's the cure to the plague. By the way, Claude, we're called Native Americans, not Indians." "Oh, I'm sorry. I honestly didn't realize I was calling you guys by the wrong name." With all the information Claude needed, he begins to look for M&M. After hours of searching, he sees a large golden gate. He approaches it and wonders if this is the entrance to M&M, and why was it so easy to find and get into. Claude soon realizes it's not easy. He opens the gate and falls straight down into another strange abyss where time is at a complete standstill. There's nothing there except this bright light filling in the dark abyss. Coming from the light is this tall, mystical being. "Who are you?" Claude yelled. "I am the infant ruler of this realm. I will see if you're worthy to enter or not, and by looking, I can already tell that it's a no for me." Then she calls for Cilantro. "Cilantro! Come over here so we can see if this dude is worthy." Another mystical being enters the room. Cilantro begins to analyze Claude, looking at him up and down. Claude looked nervous, his anxiety pulling off of him in waves. "I'm here to get the flower to cure the natives," Claude says nervously. "Why do you think you should be allowed in?" Cilantro asks. "People who are worthy of this place are beacons for light, heroes to those around them. If that's you, by all means, and try and enter." The infant guardian says. This statement makes him wonder, is he really a beacon of hope? Is he really the hero in this story? Then he remembers all his adventures with Huck, all the things he's done. Without a doubt I am worthy. I am a beacon of hope and I am a hero. He steps out of the abyss and walks through the gate. Claud quickly finds the flower and returns to the natives. He bows down before them again with arms extended with the cure. The chief of the natives tell him, "Thank you. Us natives forgive you. And now you can return home." "I'm not leaving this place without you guys," Claud replies. "So anyway, how do we leave?" Natives look around and say, "You must challenge literal death to a battle, and you have to win." Act 12. Dinosaurs? Huck doesn't know what to say at his best friend's funeral. He stands silently. Then a man from the shadows emerges. Everything goes by in a blur. Huck yells angrily, but it doesn't matter. Huck feels a beam hit his chest and he vanishes. Huck is shaken awake by the Cowboys' new leader, Jerome. Huck is told that Peyton used a time ray gun to send him, and everyone else that could be a potential threat to Peyton's plan into the past. "Where are we?" Huck asks. Nobody responds. The leader of the fire tribe then points out a second moon in the sky. Huck realizes that it isn't a moon, it's a meteor, and it's getting closer. Huck informs everyone that the ray gun that hit them set them back into the Jurassic period, and that they probably have a day before the meteor hits, obliterating all life on Earth. Everyone starts to stir. Huck informs everyone that he doesn't know what to do. At this time, Jerome stands up and says, "I have a plan. We split up into 2 teams. Some of us will create a shelter, while some of us will explore the area around us. I'm in charge of the shelter while Huck will lead the expedition." A random cowboy yells and asks, "What's the point? We're all gonna die in a day." Jerome says all we can do is pray that somebody will find the time ray to bring us back into the future. We have to make every moment count because there's a chance somebody in the future will bring us back. So the 2 groups split up. Jerome leads a group on the Omega Shelter progress, while Huck and a group of cowboys explore. While exploring, they find something devastating. They discover a destroyed caveman village. Most of the cavemen there are dead or seriously injured. Huck leans down to the ground next to a man that looks like the cave people's leader, and he asks, "Who did this to you?" The elderly man replies, "The dinosaurs." The cowboys that were with Huck couldn't stand the destruction they saw around them. They hated war. They hated monsters that committed massive genocide. They hated their past life. The cowboys tell Huck that they're going to put a stop to the dinosaurs. Huck tells them it doesn't matter. The dinosaurs and the cave people will be dead in a day. But the cowboys don't care. They head back to the massive shelter built by Jerome, the fire tribe and mer people. They alert Jerome about the dinosaurs slaughtering the cave people, and Jerome agrees that they have nothing better to do but stop it. Huck goes up to Catherine Drexen and tells her that they need to stop this unnecessary war, and Catherine agrees. But by that time, it's too late. The cowboys leave the fort with their guns ablazing, ready to take on the dinosaurs. Huck mumbles to himself, "I can't believe I let the idiot Jerome be in charge." Act 13. A surprising romance. 5 hours until the meteor hits. Huck runs out of the giant shelter out onto a battlefield filled with cowboys and dinosaurs. It takes him 3 hours until he finds Jerome. In the middle of the battlefield, he yells at Jerome and tells him this unnecessary battle needs to stop. "You're right," yells Jerome. "This does need to stop. I'm going to kill the queen of the dinosaurs." Jerome turns around with anger in his heart. How could these creatures kill these innocent cavemen? Why was the world such a cruel place? Then all his thoughts stopped once he saw her. She was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. The whole entire battle stopped as he walked closer to her. The cowboys and dinosaurs were both staring at Jerome, confused. 2 hours until the meteor hits. Jerome had walked up to her. He told her his name, and then he snapped out of his trance. He yelled at her and asked, "Why did you attack the cave people?" Her response, "They turned my eggs into an omelet." "Oh," says Jerome. "So what's your name?" Jerome asked. "Daphne," replied the girl. The battle was called off, and Jerome and the girl spent all their time together. But time was almost up. 5 minutes until the meteor hits. "I can't believe I ever saw you as the villain," Jerome says. "Your looks, your smile, your personality. Whoever knew you would be the perfect romantic match for me." Jerome pulls a rock from the ground. He gets down on one knee and he knows he only has 5 minutes left to live. He prepares to ask her the question, stating that he wants to spend the 5 minutes they have left with her. Suddenly, Jerome hears a booming voice. "So this is where you've been at," yells Huck. We need to stick together for the last 5 minutes alive. A bunch of cowboys pick him up by the arms and drag him to the massive shelter he built. The cowboys, the mer people, the fire tribe, the hillbillies, the Indians, and the dinosaurs all stand together as one group, as friends, as family. They stare at the sky and they watch the meteor get closer. They have about a minute left. Huck looks around at his friends and he says, "It sucks that we're gonna die, but I'm happy that I'm dying with y'all." Huck closes his eyes, waiting for the meteor to hit. Everything goes black. Act 14. The Battle Against Death. Claud and the natives walk up to a giant manor with a huge black gate. "So this is where we fight death?" Claud asks. The native leader replies yes. The gate suddenly opens and a figure in a dark hood appears. "Are you here to challenge me?" the hooded man asks. Claud steps forward and says yes. The natives couldn't see what happened next. Claud was suddenly teleported to a black room with a table inside of it. On top of the table was a game battle spaceship. The hooded figure known as Death suddenly appeared. He asked Claud, "Are you ready for the battle of your life? Because if I sink your battleship, you and your native friends are going to hell." Claud asks how many times Death has played this game. "A lot of times, and I have won all of them," replies Death. The battle starts. "F1056, asks Claud. "Miss," replies Death. "J53485.764, asks Death. "Hit," replies Claud. After 3 minutes of playing, Claud had only one ship not sunk. The realization hits Claud. Death is cheating. He can read minds. Claud breathes in and breathes out. He forgets everything he ever knew. "A7, asks Death. Death gets his first miss of the game. "How?" Death yells. "Be quiet," Claud says. "The game isn't over." Claud continues to block out his mind so he can play a normal, fair game of Battle Spaceship. After 50 minutes of gameplay, Claud asks N768. "You've sunk my last battleship," replies Death. Death opens up a portal and Claud reunites with the natives. "You beat me," says Death, "so you and your friends get to return home." Death opens up a portal, and the natives and Claud walk into a destroyed saloon with a casket in the middle of it. How long was I dead?" asks Claud. 3 days and 23 hours. "Your funeral was actually held here," Death tells Claud. "Why is this place destroyed?" Claud wonders. Act 15. Peyton's plan. Death closes the portal and leaves Claud and the natives in the destroyed room. A voice suddenly speaks up and says, "Hello, help. Is someone there?" Claud discovers a cowboy trapped underneath a metal pole, his legs crushed. Claud helps the cowboys escape the rubble. Claud asks the cowboys what happened. Claud is told about Peyton's attack during his funeral. The cowboy tells him that Peyton used a time ray to send everyone that was a potential threat to his new evil plan. Peyton then collapses part of the building, leaving me the only person not sent back, crushed and starving. Peyton has a new evil plan and he doesn't want anyone stopping him. Claud comes up with a plan to stop Peyton and get the time ray. The natives and Claud carry the injured cowboy to a hospital. Claud heads to Peyton's lab alone. Peyton addresses the merman he is tied up on a chair. "I'm sorry it has to end this way for you. It's just I require mer people blood to activate my machine." "Any last words?" Peyton asks. "What's the machine for?" the merman asks. "It opens a gateway to free an ancient evil while providing a distraction for any hero trying to stop me." The merman asks, "What's the distraction?" Peyton tells the merman that the machine turns inanimate objects into living creatures. The only downside is that its effect happens periodically, meaning that at the start it will only be huge objects that are alive. But once the machine is at 100%, every inanimate object will be alive. And lastly, once everything is alive, the ancient evil will be freed. I will then capture the evil and give its powers to me. With its powers, I can rewrite reality into my own image. Peyton proceeds to kill the merman, and with his blood he activates the machine. Claud hops through the ceiling of Peyton's lab. He had been eavesdropping on the area around him, and he heard Peyton's plan to destroy the planet. Claud knows what he has to do. He first locates the time ray, and then he discovers the most recent year used was 198566748 BC. Claud then adds 1 day into the machine's database, and he shoots himself, sending him to 198566748 and 1 day BC. Claude wakes up on the ground, time ray in hand, and he sees a giant cluster of humans and animals and dinosaurs standing together. Claude sees his best friend. Claude sees Huck. Claude notices that the people in the cluster are all staring at something. Claude turns around and he looks into the sky, and he sees a meteor seconds away from hitting the planet. Act 16, Cowboys vs. Everything Part 1. Claude quickly activates the time ray and he sends everyone to the present. Claude wakes up inside the volcano prison near the ocean of Olaval. Claude stands up from the ground and he turns around and he sees his best friend Huck. "How are you alive?" asks Huck. Claude proceeds to tell everyone the story of him dying, reconnecting with the natives and saving their lives. Claude also points out that natives is their name. They are not Indians. Claude talks about him challenging death to a game of Battle Spaceship, and since he won, he got to return home. Huck tells him about the defeat of the Martians. He tells him about being sent back to the past and fighting dinosaurs, and how everyone had united as one group to embrace death, the meteor, together. We have a problem," Claude says after Huck finishes his rant. Claude tells everyone about Peyton's plan to rewrite reality and how he activated a machine that slowly makes inanimate objects alive. Out of nowhere, the world around them begins to shake. Claude releases the machine is at 10% and its power is coming into effect. Out of nowhere, the time gun Claude is still holding in his hand grows a mouth and 2 feet. It bites down on Claude's hand and jumps for freedom. "Did I mention that everything the machine brings to life is evil?" Claude says. Machines inside the base spring to life with arms, mouths, and legs. A full-out quick fight happens and the heroes of the story win. Claude tells everyone that this is just the beginning and the effects are about to be much, much worse. Eventually, everything will be alive and under Peyton's control. Everyone looks at the leader of the group. Everyone looks at the hero they believe in. Everyone stares at Claude, and they ask him, "What should we do?" Claude starts shouting orders, and everyone starts going their separate ways. Some hop into the volcano and launch themselves to different places. The natives are tasked with collecting weapons for this war. The fire tribe is tasked with protecting the volcano and eliminating all threats around it. Everyone else is tasked with bringing citizens from around the globe to this location as a safe point. Jerome and Daphne, the dinosaur, share a kiss and go separate ways. Claude, Huck, Jerome, the leader of the natives, and Catherine Trex and stand together, watching as everyone goes their separate ways to fight this war. Claude then moves forward and stands in front of his fellow leaders. "This is going to be a risky move, but I think we need to establish an area for any communications for the war." "How are we going to do that?" asks Catherine. Claude tells them to follow him, and they go down into the deepest part of the volcano's dungeon. Claude tells the leaders that Peyton's machine only affects things on this planet, so they have to use the UFOs built by the Martians as a safe hub and a communication surveillance place, because they won't be affected. "How are we going to do that?" asks Huck. "No one on our side knows how to operate those machines." Claude tells him that he has a plan that's going to be very risky. Claude opens the main dungeon door. Claude reaches out his hand, and Emma Martian grabs hold of it. Act 17, Cowboys vs. Everything Part 2. Everyone steps backward astonished. Huck calls Claude a moron for ever opening her cage. Claude stares Emma Martian in the eyes and says, "I'm giving you your one chance of freedom, your last chance for redemption. You are going to open up all these cells filled with Martians and you are going to set up a communication system using your UFOs. You are going to help us fight the war against Peyton." Claude throws Emma's cell keys and walks away with his fellow leaders. Claude looks at all of them and asks, "Are you ready to fight in a war against everything?" The earth suddenly shakes around them. Claude knows that the machine is getting more powerful. A bunch of middle school students sit in their class, bored. One of them begins to tap his pencil. He stares down at his pencil and he notices it looks like it's changing. It grows, a mouth and 2 legs, and it bites off his hand. The whole entire ground of the school starts to shake. All of the school supplies, paper, pencils, computers, suddenly grow arms, legs, eyes, and a mouth. Everyone at school starts to scream and panic. Out of nowhere, multiple dinosaurs run through the walls of the school. The dinosaurs yell at the children to hop on their back. Suddenly, the roof explodes, and cowboys fall into the school, shooting their guns at school supplies, whiteboards, and are basically fighting everything. The area is in complete chaos. But it's not just the school. Everything in certain areas are alive. Skyscrapers are growing legs and falling over, crushing people. Telephone towers... everything is in complete chaos. Trees are shaking, Legos are running around randomly, telephone towers are falling over, disabling all communications. The cowboys shout at each other and they say, "We need to get these citizens to safety." But how? A cowboy asks. Suddenly, multiple UFOs fly over the sky. Somebody starts speaking in all the heroes' brains. Load the civilians and animals onto the UFOs, and us Martians will take them to the volcano. Emma Martian leans back in her chair and watches as everyone listens to her. They load up the civilians into the UFOs. Emma Martian feels a new emotion go over her. It's pride. It's pride because she feels like she's finally helping out the world. She's finally saving the humans from the cruel world. Huck, Claude, Catherine, the natives' leader, and Jerome leave a happy Emma Martian. Inside of the volcano. Huck, Claude, Catherine, the natives' leader, and Jerome leave a happy Emma Martian inside the volcano. Catherine creates a tidal wave that they all ride. Catherine asks Claude, "Where are we going?" And Claude tells her to begin to head to Peyton's laboratory. Suddenly, the ocean shakes. Claude panics because he knows the machine is getting more powerful. Catherine loses focus, and the tidal wave splits apart into 5 sections, heading in different directions. Each section has a different leader in it. Eventually, every leader hits the ground hard, knocking them out. The natives and hillbillies explore the rubble of an old band hall. They discover 5 clarinets with eyes and mouths but no legs. The clarinets introduce themselves in order. Gart is the first one, Mason is the second, Zach was the first, Jesus was the 4th, and Woolman was the 5th. The natives ask the clarinets, "Can we use you guys as spears?" And all of the clarinets reply yes. Huck wakes up inside of a graveyard in front of Peyton's laboratory. Huck prepares to run up to the laboratory, but the ground begins to shake. Huck sees a hand rise from the ground below. The creatures begin to pull itself out of the ground. Peyton's machine was getting more powerful, and now it was creating zombies. Huck looked at the zombies in front of him, and he recognized them immediately. The zombies were his parents that Peyton had killed. Huck falls backwards in complete shock. His dead parents and other zombies surround him and tackle him to the ground. Act 18, Cowboys vs. Everything, Part 3. Peyton's machine reaches 50% power. Huck opens his eyes and he discovers he is inside of Peyton's lab tied up. Peyton suddenly speaks up. "Wow, you're the first one to make it to my lab." Peyton pulls out a gun and inserts something into Huck's neck. "What did you just do?" Huck asks. Peyton simply looks at him with a menacing smile and says, "I put a bomb in your neck." Claude is running through a city with his fellow cowboys. He's firing his gun at random objects that are chasing him. Lego characters, globes, tables, clocks, and more random objects. After swiftly taking them all down, Claude hops up into a spaceship and broadcasts a message to everyone. "If we keep on fighting like this, we're going to be overwhelmed," Claude states. Catherine asks him, "What should we do?" Claude tells everyone to initiate Phase 2. The natives suddenly arrive on the battlefield, and they hand out the weapons that they gathered. The ground starts to shake again, and the machine reaches 60% power. Zombies start emerging from the ground, toilets start coming alive, mountains grow eyeballs and legs. Our heroes, the dinosaurs, the cowboys, the hillbillies, the aliens, the natives, the fire tribe, and the mer people, all gather up in a huge circle, and they jump out with their weapons to take on more of the inanimate objects. Claude is suddenly fighting coffee mugs while Jerome is fighting computer chargers. Suddenly, all the street lamps in the area start falling over, crushing anything they can. Some of the natives are throwing the clarinets they found earlier. The clarinet named Zach hits an alive door in the eyeball. The door then states, "Ah, hello, traveler." And Zach asks the door, "Do you come here often?" The dinosaurs are fighting giant statues. The cowboys are fighting mattresses and pillows. The fire tribe is causing forest fires to those darn alive trees. And the natives are fighting tissue boxes and fridges. The battle is going smoothly, but more and more inanimate objects are showing up. Catherine and the mer people are overwhelmed because straws are sucking up all the water they are swimming and fighting in. So Catherine jumps from the pond she's in into the ocean, and she summons all the water she can from the ocean. Catherine floods the city that everything in the world is fighting in. The inanimate objects just float while all the heroes sink to the bottom. Half of the heroes pass out underwater. Catherine makes the biggest mistake of her life. She took out half of the good guys by accident. Suddenly, most of the water is drained out of the city, but it doesn't matter. The heroes are exhausted and surrounded by toilet paper, snow globes, couches, water jugs, paintings, stop signs, trampolines, purses, and even more inanimate objects. Suddenly, a UFO drops down a giant wooden horse and it knocks over half of the inanimate objects surrounding the heroes. Claude yells at his fellow good guys to get inside the wooden horse so they can escape. Suddenly, the horse explodes. But there goes the escape plan, Claude says. He looks around the area and says, "Well, my fellow heroes, we fought a good fight." Act 19, Cowboys vs. Everything, Part 4. The machine hits 70% power. The heroes of the stories are surrounded, about to be killed. All hope is lost. Emma Martian watches from the volcano as random heroes are slowly being killed by inanimate objects. She starts to cry because the war is over. They did lose. The heroes actually lost. Emma turns around and looks at the 18 billion civilians inside the volcano, and she tells them that the heroes lost. It was over. Then Emma realized something. The battle wasn't over. They just needed more soldiers. She looked at the innocent civilians that she was standing in front of, and she asked them, "The heroes are fighting for all of our lives, and they are currently overwhelmed. They need backup. Are any of you willing to help fight in this battle?" Two humans step forward and they introduce themselves. One of them is named Marissa, the other is named Angita. They both say at the same time, "We will fight." They then proceed to hop into the volcano and they launch themselves to the battlefield. Following their implements, about 1 billion people jump into the volcano and launch themselves into the battlefield. Claude is being held down, and he's forced to watch as his fellow friends are being ripped in half by inanimate objects. Suddenly, Claude hears a voice in his ear. It is Emma Martian. She tells him that she has gotten back up and is on its way. Claude looks up in the sky and he watches as two females land on the ground in front of him. "That's our backup?" Claude asks. Suddenly, the whole entire sky goes black. All of the inanimate objects look up in terror and 1 billion people land on the ground. Emma Martian tells him, "There's your backup." The ground around them suddenly shakes. Peyton's machine hits 80% power. All of the heroes are back up fighting evil inanimate objects. Evil buildings are being destroyed. The fat people are eating all the alive evil food. The cowboys are riding the dinosaurs ram through alive evil dishwashers, and the cowboys shoot the evil soda cans and trash. The heroes are winning against the evil inanimate objects. Claude decides to leave Angita and Marissa in charge of leading the troops. Claude looks around in pride. He realizes that his fellow friends have the battle handled. He urges Catherine, Jerome, and the native leader to follow him. Claude looks at his fellow leaders and his fellow friends and he asks them, "Are you ready to end this? Are you ready to defeat Peyton?" They reply yes, and they head to Peyton's laboratory. Peyton looks outside of his laboratory as his machine hits 90% power. Peyton tells his prisoner Huck, "The World Killer will soon be released, and his power will be mine." Act 20, Cowboys vs. Everything, Part 5. The machine hits 96% power. Claude, Catherine, Jerome, and the native leader fight through armies of kitchen cabinets, pool floaties, lamps, umbrellas, cars, and eventually they arrive at the doorstep of Peyton's laboratory. They tear down the door and they come face to face with Peyton in a giant robotic suit. An army of small inanimate objects were around him. Peyton's machine was next to him, and over to the side was a tied-up Huck. The machine reaches 97% power. Huck shouts out, "Don't destroy the machine. If it's deactivated, it will explode a bomb, killing everyone in a 50-mile radius." Claude asks, "Where's the bomb?" And Huck responds, "The bomb is me." Claude lunges forward in anger and he fires his gun at Peyton's armor. It ricochets and almost hits the machine. Jerome runs over to the side and he asks Huck where the bomb is. Huck tells him it is in his neck. Jerome proceeds to knock Huck out and he uses his spare knife to cut open his neck. Meanwhile, Catherine and the native leader fight the army of inanimate objects. The machine reaches 98% power. Claude continues to attack Peyton, but nothing is getting through Peyton's armor. Claude starts shouting at Peyton. Claude asks, "What is your endgame? Why do you want to destroy the world?" And Peyton starts his evil monologue. "Once, I was a tiny lad. My mom left my dad out of the blue. My father became bitter and cold. Every day he would starve me. He would tell me I was nothing. He would hit me and call me weak, and every day I was locked in my room for hours. sitting there waiting for a day of escape. But that day never came. Years later, I was still starved. I was still alone, and I was literally nothing. No one gave a damn about me. My dad eventually passed away, and that was my opportunity to go out into the world to prove that I did matter. But society rejected me and hated me just like my parents. I eventually found the passion of science, and I learned everything I could. I eventually became an inventor, and one day, I invented genetically modified turtles. And unfortunately, they killed countless people. Society called me a freak, a murderer, and then I realized the truth. I was a freak. I was a monster. I ended up sulking in my basement for days, but then I heard a voice, and he guided me down the path I'm on today. And in about 5 minutes, I'm gonna have that voice's power, and I'm gonna rewrite reality in my own image. I'm gonna be a leader in my new reality. I'm going to be a king. Everyone will be accepted. Everyone will be an equal. But everyone except me in this old reality is gonna die. Claude tells Peyton, "Not on my watch." Claude uppercuts Peyton, breaking through the metal robotic suit, knocking Peyton out. The machine reaches 99% power. Claude yells at Jerome to get to the bomb. The machine reaches 99% power. Claude yells at Jerome to get the bomb out of Huck's head, and Jerome yells, "I've gotten it out. I just need to deactivate the bomb." Claude helps Catherine and the native leader take out the remaining army of inanimate objects. The last object they defeat is the Statue of Liberty. Jerome yells, "I've deactivated the bomb." Claude fires his gun. Catherine shoots water, and the native leader throws a clarinet named Woolman at the machine, and the machine explodes. Not because they destroyed the machine, but because the machine hit 100% power. A portal suddenly opens, and a metallic figure with red glowing eyes walks through. The World Killer had arrived. Act 21, The End of the World. A metallic figure suddenly appears. Peyton presses a button and a machine locks this metallic figure in place. It's trapped. Suddenly, a beam of energy leaves the metallic figure, and the beam hits Peyton. The beam was the World Killer's power. And now Peyton has an all-powerful being's power. Suddenly, Peyton cackles. He then snaps his fingers, and suddenly Huck, Jerome, Catherine, and the native leader vanish. He looks Claude in the eye, and he says, "You're next." Peyton shoots a beam of energy at Claude. Luckily, Claude does a triple backflip, and he escapes. Claude contacts Emma Martian, and she picks him up in her UFO. Claude tells Emma about how he failed at stopping Peyton. He told her that Huck, Catherine, Jerome, and the native leader were dead. He told her that Peyton was beginning the process to destroy the planet, and after doing that, he would then reimagine it into his own twisted image. Emma Martian looks at Claude and says, "Don't worry, we will find a way to fix this." Suddenly, red lightning starts flashing in the sky. These red lightning bolts were creating explosions on the ground. Suddenly, the UFO is hit, and Claude and Emma Martian crash onto the ground. Claude exits the crashed spaceship, and he sees his fellow cowboys. He looks at them, and he tells them about how he failed. How he couldn't stop the mad scientist Peyton. He tells them that Peyton will now be impossible to defeat. The cowboys pick Claude up and tell him that they still have each other. Suddenly, the dinosaurs, Martians, hillbillies, merpeople, fire tribes, natives, and more armies of people appear. Claude realizes the war isn't over. He tells everyone to gather round, and he tells them to head full in charge to defeat Peyton and his army. Peyton suddenly appears. The army of inanimate objects begin to fight the army of actual living creatures, led by Angita and Marissa. Emma Martian suddenly looks at Claude and says, "I thank you for everything. You tried redeeming me, and you eventually did. Your hope saved me, and now I'm fighting for the good guys to do the right thing, to save the planet." The odds of us winning are slim, though, and in all honesty, there's a 0% chance of you beating Peyton. She tells Claude that she's sorry that she has to do this. Emma Martian grabs Claude's gun and shoots him in the leg. She drags Claude into the spaceship, she throws something into the spaceship, and he's sent to outer space. She tells him as she's sending him away that this was the only way to win. Claude watches as his own planet is blown up. He curls up in a ball and cries because he knows that he lost. He knows that all his friends are dead. Claude feels hopeless. Act 22, The Present. I'm alone on a spaceship, and I stare down at the destroyed planet. My name is Claude, if you didn't already know. I saw the world end. I decided to start an unnecessary war against the natives. This kicked off a chain reaction leading to the end of the world. time travel, mind-controlled friends, a mad scientist, merpeople, aliens. Once me and my fellow cowboys fought those natives, we started a war that freed an ancient evil. And now all my friends are dead. The planet is gone and it's all my fault. It's been 5 days since the planet was destroyed. I'm stuck in this stupid spaceship, forced to watch as Peyton rebuilds the world in his own twisted image. It doesn't matter though. I'm out of food. The spaceship can't move, and I can't fight an all-powerful being because it could literally erase me from history any second. I look around the spaceship for food, but I find something else. I discovered the time ray. I begin to freak out. This is a new opportunity. I crank the clock back 7 days, and I go back to the start of the war against everything. And this time, I have a plan to win. Act 23, the beginning of the war for everything. I wake up inside the volcano of Vallejo, and I'm sitting next to my past self and my past friends. They ask who I am, and I explain the negative outcome of the war we're facing ahead. The crowd begins to rumble below, and I realize Peyton has activated his machine. I tell my friends a new plan to save the planet, and I slowly start to fade away from reality, because the timeline has changed. I tell my friends to trust my plan. Claude, Huck, Jerome, and Catherine basically look around in complete shock. They just heard a story from a future version of Claude about how they were all going to die unless they follow his plan. Everyone looks around and wonders what the group should do. Claude says, "I guess we follow his plan." Everyone looks around and they all nod their heads and say okay. A new plan is set in motion. Emma Martian and the Martians are freed from their prison. Each Martian is offered a new opportunity. They immediately use their UFOs to teleport all citizens and animals of the world into the volcano of Vallejo. Claude addresses the crowd of creatures in front of him. He tells them that they're all going to die unless they follow his plan to stop the mad scientist Peyton. Claude asks the groups of creatures if they were ready to fight to save the planet, and they all reply, yes. The crowd begins to shake by the time everyone is prepared to fight in this giant grand war. Peyton's machine reaches 50% power. Peyton knows the time anomalies. He knows that the future Claude has interfered in the timeline. Peyton moves the machine far away from his lab, making sure it is hidden well. Peyton begins to prepare for this grand war. He gets all of the inanimate objects currently alive and makes sure they are ready for this grand battle. Claude wishes Emma Martian luck. He leaves her in charge of communications. Claude tells the native leader to stay with his fellow natives. Claude leaves 2 humans named Merida and Angela in charge of the citizen portion of the army. Jerome and Daphne the dinosaur kiss goodbye. Everyone is teleported to the front of Peyton's laboratory. At this exact moment, Claude and Peyton lock eyes, and a final battle begins. Act 24, Cowboys versus the Mad Scientist. Peyton uses the inanimate objects and he makes them all stack on top of each other. He creates a giant metal robot. He shoots a laser beam and he wipes out 1/16 of the people on the opposing team. Claude and Huck enter the laboratory and they find it empty. They look around in shock. They both decide to return to the battlefield, because if they take down Peyton, they can maybe get a location of the machine. Cowboys are shooting cups, the water tribe is destroying dish soap, the fire tribe is burning down evil cars, dinosaurs are charging through buildings. It seems like the group is winning. Catherine treks and summons a tidal wave, and on top of it, there is this giant horse. The giant horse holds Claude and Huck, and it crashes into Peyton's giant robot, knocking it over. Claude shouts at Peyton. He yells, "I don't know what happened to you in your past, but it isn't too late. You do not have to kill everyone." Huck chips in and he says, "You killed countless. You killed my family and friends, but I have faith that you can change for the better." Peyton drops to the ground and he begs for forgiveness. Claude reaches out his hand. Peyton smiles and then pulls out a knife. He lunges at Claude, but Claude has been in the same situation before. Claude tackles Peyton to the ground. They both then stand back up and they trade blows to each other. Huck joins Claude with fighting against Peyton. It isn't enough, though. Our 2 heroes are overwhelmed by Peyton's fighting skills. Peyton calculates every situation, he dodges every punch, he knows our heroes' weak points. Claude and Huck are knocked down countless times by Peyton. He yells at them to give up, but they never do. They get back up and they still attempt to fight him. The crowd begins to shake. Peyton knocks both Claude and Huck to the ground, and he yells, "My machine is now at 95%. It's too late for you pathetic heroes." Claude and Huck stare at each other, and they know what they need to do. They both do a triple backflip. They both high-five. They both yell out Pig Latin, and Claude grabs hold of Huck, and he whispers, "You know what we need to do." A second later, Claude and Huck uppercut Peyton at the same time, knocking him clean out. Emma Martian hooks up a mind-reading machine to Peyton's brain. Emma discovers the location of Peyton's machine and she shuts it off. The UFOs restore the now dead inanimate objects to their rightful place. Claud gathers up with his friends and family and he looks at them proudly. He tells them that this never-ending war is over. Act 25, the conclusion. Claud told his army to gather round and he thanked each and every one of his friends for staying with him and fighting with him to save the planet. It took a long time to get everything back to normal, but eventually the people of the planet were restored to their rightful place. Months passed by after the war. Claud went on adventures to save the planet a few more times with his best friend Huck. He also went with Catherine Trexton, Emma Martian, the native leader, Jerome the cowboy, and Daphne the dinosaur. The heroes of the world eventually decided to settle down. Jerome and Daphne got married, Emma Martian went back to Mars, Huck and Catherine started dating, and the native leader eventually decided to retire to lead his village, which was rebuilt by me, Claud. And I, Claud, have done everything in my power to make sure everyone in society is treated as equals. I still fight for the humankind. I prevent wars and I try my best to save as many people as I can. Every Friday night, me and my friends meet up at the saloon to have a beer or two. Peyton is trapped in a prison, and every week I visit him and I talk to him. I offer him a new path, a new direction to take for his life. I offer him an opportunity to move on, but he just stares at me in pure hatred. It's Friday night. Me, Huck, Catherine, Jerome, Daphne, Emma, and the native leader are all catching up at the saloon. I look back on how just 6 months ago I was a narcissistic, racist jerk, and now I respect others and treat them equally. I tell my friends I'm proud of how far I've come as a human, and they tell me that they're also proud of me. Me and Huck shared a story of how we uppercutted Peyton, defeating him in the War of Everything. Hours passed by, and all of us did some reflecting on how much we've changed since 6 months ago. The Battle of the Lamppost happened 6 months ago. Eventually, it is time to leave the saloon. I say my goodbyes to my friends, and I prepare to return to my house, the Giant Horse. But I look up into the sky and I see a spaceship about to hit the earth. I yell at my friends to move out of the way. The spaceship hits the light post next to the saloon, knocking it over. In a minute, the saloon is burned down. Me and my friends gather around to begin to walk toward the crashed spaceship. The door to the spaceship opens, and a future older version of myself walks out of it, and he tells us 3 things. 1. He introduces himself as an older version of me from a different reality. 2. He then tells us the mad scientist Peyton has escaped from his prison. 3. And he tells us the ancient evil, also known as the World Killer, is now free. The spin-off Cowboys in the Multiverse is coming soon.